Welcome back everyone. If you're new here, my name is Bryan Jenks, and today we're going to talk about how I put my mind under version control. Clickbaity title, but true. So let's take a look at this. I wrote an article on Medium about how I put my mind, or my Obsidian vault, under version control. And I saw something done similarly by Justin from Effective Remote Work using a bash script and using Git and GitHub. And I added a little bit more to that and put my own little spin on it. And I detail in here, if you prefer a written medium, no pun intended, then I give a comprehensive write-up on all of this stuff, exactly what the script does, line by line, and this is what we're going to go over in video form today, if you prefer to hear this in video versus just reading it. So we're going to go over this line by line and just jump right in, and why did I even do this to begin with? So first of all, why did I do this? Why did I go to the effort of doing this? So because Obsidian is an application that is pointed at a vault of plain text markdown documents, this means that it's plain text, and we can subject it to version control. So over the course of time, I can say, hey, I want to look at a specific note in here. Let's do Andy Matuszak, and I can look at it throughout its entire lifetime in this vault and say, hey, what's the life of this note? What's happened to it over time? And I can say, let's look at the history. And I can say, every time I've modified this, I can go back at that point in time, and I can actually look at what that article looked like and what changes I made. And every time that it's had an upload, I can actually change and look at all of this stuff. And this is one of the critical things, is that I wanted not only redundancy, therefore my vault is not only on my local machine, it's actually externally hosted and safe somewhere. I can actually see the version control. As I change these notes over time, I can see what my old content looked like. It's no longer like lost in time, and I can always revert back to prior versions, or at least look at what I had before without any additional overhead. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to save copies, V1, V1.2, V1 final. No, I just have to put it in Git and forget about it. It's done automatically for me with the way I set up this script. And I wanted version control. I wanted redundant storage. I also host my vault on my own iCloud, cloud hosting. So I mean, I'm never going to lose my stuff, pending world catastrophe. But I made this so that I can easily have everything synced onto GitHub so that I can access this anywhere, anytime, from any computer. And so I actually also included some of my workspace and configuration settings files. So with this, I can actually open up an Obsidian editor anywhere, and my exact editor, even exactly the note I left off on, everything is completely brought over. It's like remoting onto my home computer, and I'm working in the exact same session. And I wanted this, and now I can go to work, I can go on GitHub, I can just access my file, change it on here, and I'm good. And I might do that by using the GitHub Code Spaces feature. I'm not sure if that's still like a beta thing or not, but if I open this with Code Spaces, I can actually edit this with a VS Code cloud instance in GitHub. And if you're interested in things like Foam or Dendron, you can actually use them in this GitHub Code Spaces, and then use Obsidian at home if you wanted to. So all of the things that come with GitHub makes this a very robust tool set that you can then add to your workflow with Obsidian. And before I forget, if you want the link to this Medium article or the gist where I store all of the code for this entire script and the entire GitHub and zettelkasten syncing of an Obsidian vault, all that stuff, you want the links, they're going to be in the pinned comment below with the timestamps, and we're going to go over this step by step. So I'm not going to edit this next section too heavily just because it's going to be a lot to chop out, but bear with me. So we're going to go over this line by line and see how I set all this up, what I did, and how it all works. So the first thing is that you need to have Git installed. If you don't have Git installed, install Git. I'm on Mac, so you can do brew install Git, though I'm sure that you probably already have it if it didn't come already. Basically, for whatever your machine is, get Git. So the first thing we have to do is we are going to permanently cache our credentials. Now, you may not want to do this. That's going to prevent you from really using this workflow the way I do, and you might have to figure out some other stuff. But really what this means is that I don't want to have to enter my name, my password, or any details anytime I want to push something to GitHub to one of my repositories. Maybe this isn't the safest thing. Maybe this isn't the most, well, this is definitely a volatile thing. So be cautious. But what this is doing is saying it doesn't prompt you for any credentials ever. So you're going to do git config, and I'm not sure why I had to do OSX keychain, but git credential helper store, and yeah, I'm not sure why it's saying .config, no. So you're going to do that, and then I think I actually had to do OSX keychain for some reason, because it's in my saved keys here. No, stop. And there you go. So you're going to permanently cache your credentials, which are in my case, OSX keychain. I believe that's what I had to do. And then store is probably for people who are using password storage. But in any case, maybe this isn't the right thing. I think I had to Google this, but if you need any help with that, let me know if you run into any issues, and maybe we can figure that out. So first thing we're going to do is you're going to go to your Obsidian vault. You need to go to the vault and actually put a git ignore in there. So I actually have my Obsidian vault hosted on iCloud. My file pathway to there is ridiculous, so I just wrote an alias that I can type iCloud, and it takes me there. I don't have to type any of that, because look at that. That's a ridiculous amount of crap to type. So actually I should probably zoom in too. All right, so I'm in my iCloud folder, and I'm going to go to my vault, and now I'm in my vault. You can see I'm in a Git repo, obviously. So we're going to actually create a git ignore. So to do that, we're going to say touch.gitignore. This is going to create the .gitignore file. So I can actually open up mine. Let's do vim.gitignore. So all I have in here is, these 4 different things. Now, for this article, all I did was the first 3, because when you're going to use code spaces on VS Code, you want to ignore the Python environment it puts in there. It's a bunch of extra junk you don't want. So that's if you're going to use code spaces on GitHub. Otherwise, you just need these 3 things in here. So from the command line, if you don't want to use Vim or whatever, all you have to do is do echo, open up a double quote. I could do .obsidian /cache, because you don't want any of that cached information. Now, we're still in an open-ended double quote, so I can just hit enter for a new line in this file, .trash, because I don't want any trash. And then if you're on Mac, we have issues with the .ds store files, and we don't want those. Close off the quote, and now we're going to push those changes, or in this case, overwrite. In my case, I'm going to actually append. You can just do a single one, because this is going to overwrite the entire file, the blank and .gitignore file, with the contents of this quote string, which is these 3 files to ignore. So I don't want to overwrite mine. I'm just going to append, but you should use a single angle bracket. And we're going to put that into .gitignore. Now what that looks like is I can open up my gitignore, and now you can see, I have new stuff in here. Obviously, this did not work as intended because I have my own file in here already. But what that would do is it would actually just create these first 3 lines for you, which ignores those things. And that is what we want. We want those things ignored. So next, we're actually going to make your repo a repo. We're going to make your vault a repo. So wherever you have this hosted, it could be your local file system, you could have it on iCloud like me, or a Dropbox folder, whatever. You're going to do these 3 commands. I already have a GitHub repo, so I'm not going to do this again. But you're going to say git init, which makes your current directory, your folder, a repo for a Git repo. You're going to say git add period, which adds literally everything. Everything is added to your Git repo, and you're going to commit those changes, saying, hey, I made changes. The changes are, I added stuff to the repo. It was empty, now it's not. Git commit -m, which is saying, hey, I want to add a commit. I'm going to add that commit with a message. The message is, init. You initialize this repo. Cool. Now it exists on your machine, but not on GitHub. So what you're going to need to do is go to GitHub and then create a new repository. So if I'm on GitHub, I need to actually make a new repo. You need to have a place for this thing to land. So you can go here, create a new repo, and you can probably intuitively figure out that interface. Get the name and the your username and the name of the repo. So if I'm on one of mine, for instance, it's tallguyjenks/business card. For me, this repo is tallguyjenks/zettelkasten. So at least I think so. Yeah, zettelkasten. So in that case, you're going to do in the command line, once you've made your Git repo, your credentials are connected and everything's done, you can actually push changes to GitHub. So what you're going to do after that is say git remote add origin and then the name of that repo, and then it ends in .git. So what this is doing is this is saying, hey, I have a repo on GitHub, but my local repository, the Git repository we just made, these things are not connected. They don't know each other exist. So we're saying, hey, knock knock remote repo, I have files here and changes. I'm going to send them to you. So you're going to do that. You're going to say, hey, git remote add origin. This is the origin of your current local repository now. We're pointing it at that saying, hey, that's where you came from. Now, this is where you came from now. So it's saying, okay, that's where I came from, but none of my stuff's there yet. I'm still on your local machine. Git push -u origin master. So what this is saying is you're going to push your current branch, everything that you have, all your changes, your new repo, up to that remote repo, your username / repo name, and set it to the master branch, saying, hey, we got a new repo. It's the master branch. We are good to go. We are, quote unquote, in production. We're good to go. So once that's done, you can go to any place we're going to store this script. So typically if you're on a Linux system, which I think other people have adapted my workflow here to Windows, but I think I only made this really work for Mac and Linux. But you're going to go to your .local share, or not .local share, .local bin for binaries, and you're going to create a shell script. So actually, let's go to my home directory, cd.local bin, and then the script I named is just zk_sync, zettelkasten sync. Touch to create it, chmod +x in the name of that script. What that is doing is that is making that script executable. It is something that can actually be run as code. So if I go and actually look at my zk sync script, this is all it is. That's it. Very simple, and we're going to cover what every line does. So what you're going to do first is touch, make that file, chmod +x, make that file executable, and yeah. So what we have here is some stuff that comes after. So yes, okay. So we don't need to worry about these last two lines until we're done with the script, because we don't want to add a cron job that the file is not doing what it's supposed to do. So after you actually made your file executable, we need to actually input all of this code. And this is exactly the file I have, but without all the comments. So what we have here is a lot of comments. The first thing we have is the shebang. What this is saying is, hey, I want this to run in the first instance of shell that you can find. And it's sh for it to be POSIX compliant shell, which means it is more portable than saying bash, and it's user bin end for environment, so that it uses the first instance of this. This is just to make it incredibly portable so it can work on multiple machines. Your zk path is a variable we are assigning, and that is going to be the absolute pathway to where your vault is stored. You can see that it says users, my name, library, mobile, my iCloud stuff, knowledge. Knowledge is the name of my vault. If I went to iCloud, you can see that if I went to knowledge and print the working directory, it is exactly what you saw there. You see? So it is that complete absolute path. We're saying, hey, this is where my repo is. So what the script is going to do is when the script is executed, whatever instance of a shell that it creates for the script, it's going to go to that path. It's going to go to your vault. The first thing it does is git pull. This is saying, hey, if I was not at my home machine, if I was over there, way over there, on a different machine, making changes, I'm on GitHub using code spaces or Obsidian on another machine, and I made changes to my repo on GitHub, I want those changes. Give them to me onto my local machine, sync them, and bring them into your repo. Basically, if I make changes and I'm on another machine, or if I'm at work and I make a quick change to a note on GitHub to one of my notes, when I get home and open up Obsidian, that change is going to be there waiting for me. That's what we want. So then we can also say, hey, pull any changes that happened while I was away from home. But now, what also runs is if there aren't any changes that happened externally, nothing happens. But if changes exist, and what we're doing here is saying, hey, changes exist is going to hold a value. What's the value? We're going to run this subshell, and we're going to say, hey, get status dash dash porcelain. What does that mean? What does that do? So we could do get, what was that command really quick? Get status. So get status dash dash porcelain. And what is that going to do? What that's going to tell you is a very simple line-by-line interface of what changes occurred. If I just run get status, I have a shortcut alias for GS, get status, you can see it gives you all of this other output, indented, modified, deleted. We don't want that. We want single lines. Why do we want single lines? Because we want to know that even if no changes occurred, what we want to know is, hey, porcelain, pipe that into word count -L, WC. WC is word count, but we don't want word count, we want lines. So word count -L. What that tells you is that there are 13 lines, basically 13 different changed items, either modified, created, deleted. There are changes. That's what matters. So the number 13 in this instance is stored inside of changes exists, because we're asking a question. We're saying, hey, changes exist? And so what happens is this if statement is saying, hey, if changes exists, which is the number 13 right now, is equal to 0, then exit. The script doesn't need to run. There's no changes. We pulled any changes that happened remotely. So if nothing happened here, we don't need to do anything more. Nothing happened. Nothing to push, nothing to pull. We're done. Good. So that's what this is doing. Is this saying, hey, if there's anything that happened locally, now we're going to go and put that up to the remote repo. But if anything happened on the remote repo, pull that first. But if there's any changes here, push those next. But we have 13. The changes exist isn't equal to 13. It's not equal to 0. So we're not going to exit. We're going to continue on. So next thing it's going to do is, before I push anything to the remote and cause any git conflicts, first thing we're going to do is we're going to git pull again. We're going to make sure that changes exist. Make sure we pull the absolute latest changes, because let's say something weird edge case. I'm editing on GitHub and Obsidian at the same time, or if you work collaboratively on a vault with other people, this will not prevent but help prevent that changes occurred both remotely and locally at the same time. You're saying, hey, give me remote first, then push local. And so we're going to pull again, then we're going to add everything in the entire vault, except the things in the .git ignore, because we're ignoring them, which is the stuff that we don't want, cache, trash, and whatever else. So we're going to add everything, all the changes, and then the commit message, we're going to do -Q because we want it quiet. I don't want to see any output from this script. It's quiet. It runs in the background. And the message is last sync, and then I input a timestamp because I really like my timestamps. And so anytime that there are changes, whatever files are changed, are going to have a commit message update of last sync, and it's going to be that timestamp. And then a quiet push. We're pushing all those changes to the remote repo, and that's it. This is all that this script does. And so this whole thing, it works. I could just run this script every time I want things updated, but I don't want to have to do it manually every single time. This is where cron jobs come in. Cron is a command line utility that will actually let you schedule scripts and jobs to run on a chronological timer. Ha! So there are several resources to help you with this, and I will put them in the link below, and I've also put them in the Medium article, and I had some helpful suggestions on additional resources as well. But cron is really useful for scheduling scripts to execute on an interval. And how we get there is, if you're on Mac, at least what I found out with mine, I bought a brand new Mac. I already had cron installed. So you might need to install cron, maybe not. But when I was on Arch Linux, I installed Crony to do this. Crony, and that's what I installed on Arch Linux to do it. But once you have cron or some cron job system installed, I'm going to open mine with cron tab -E, which is edit my cron tab. I only have one job in here, which is syncing my script, using my script and syncing it. So what is this all doing? I'm not going to go over cron jobs in detail. There are resources and helpful links for that. But really what you can infer from this is every 60 minutes, every hour, I run my script. My script is located at the absolute path users my username .localbin zksync. It runs my script. Now, I set everything to -q, quiet, but just in case there are any issues or anything like that, I've set this up in a way and I use it in a way where I don't really have any issues with anything, but I don't want to see any output. I don't want any weird aberrant behavior, so I'm sending any output to dev null, basically saying, hey, if there's any output, send it to the void. I don't want to look at it. And it sends standard output and I forget exactly which of the streams that this is referring to, but basically it sends all of my output to dev null. I don't want to see anything. Just execute in the background on a 1-hour timer. And then once I save and quit editing my cron tab, no changes, but if there were changes, it would say, hey, new cron tab installed, and you're good. That's it. Now you can go about your Obsidian editor. You can make changes to your notes. I can say, hey, let's go to my home. I'm going to make a change to my index, and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to add a line here. Hello, YouTube. And now I can go back to command line. I could say, hey, I'm going to go to iCloud. I'm going to go to my vault. I'm going to say git status, and index is now modified. Awesome. Now, I'm not going to wait for a timer because obviously I'm filming right now. I'm not going to wait. So I'm just going to run zksync, and it's going to give me, see, it's giving me output. I don't want that, so that's why we send it all to dev null. But it's going to run all of my scripts, and now you can see, hey, it was yellow because there were changes. It's green because now there's no changes. Git s, no changes there. Now, if I went back to my zettelkasten repo and showed you what the files look like in there, if I go to my index file somewhere, wherever it is, index, you can see now, hello YouTube. And just like that, everything's backed up. Now, for those of you who are not as technically inclined or don't want to have to go through all of this work or figure out all this stuff or deal with it, there is a there is an Obsidian plugin now that I believe they said they were inspired by my article, but they actually referenced my article. But in the developer plugins, now this is an insider install. By the time this video comes out, it might actually be publicly available. We'll see. But Obsidian Git, what this does is this actually lets you do exactly the same thing. I haven't set it up myself simply because I use my workflow, obviously. But this is a way of installing a plugin to help manage this in a way that uses a little bit more of a GUI interface. So I can go to Obsidian Git, let's turn it on, Obsidian Git, and it'll say, hey, what's the interval? What's the commit message, date format, commit message, branch, pull up on start, all this stuff to help you manage your syncing of your vault to GitHub. So multiple ways to do this, whether it's tech friendly or if it's just a plugin, whatever you want to do, multiple ways to get the job done. And in the end of the day, what I cared about is I wanted my content saved, backed up, under version control, and with plain text, we can do that. And it's awesome. So links to all of these materials, my article, the code, the script, everything is going to be in the pinned comment below with all of the timestamps for this video. So do check those things out. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. And it was a fun project to make. And it works beautifully for me. I edit my files on my remote computers. When I'm off away from home, I can edit my files, come home, my changes are already there, and I can just pick up right where I left off. And it syncs my workspace, pane layouts, and even what note I last had open on any of my machines because of the way some of this data is stored in certain files. So basically, I can open up a session, leave my computer, go to another computer, and open up that session. It's awesome. If you'd like to talk more about this type of stuff or connect with me in any way, I have a Discord server, link is in the description below. I do stream on Twitch, and if you want to support the channel, you can do that by watching the video, using my affiliate links below to buy anything from Amazon. You could be a patron, one-time donations, buy me a coffee, whatever you feel like, and at the end of the day, anything is appreciated. So a quick note before I go, thank you to the patrons who support this channel, Devin, Ed, Klaus, Brendan, Alberto, and John. Thank you guys for supporting the channel, and I'll catch you all in the next one.